Before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss stories like this. You're about to discover something that could completely change how you look at collecting coins. And trust me, you'll want to stick around until the very end because the value of what we're about to talk about might just blow your mind. Now, let me ask you something. Have you ever held a coin in your hand and wondered, could this little piece of metal be worth more than I ever imagined? I'm not talking about just a few dollars here or there. I'm talking about a number so high, it's almost unimaginable. Today, we are going to explore a coin that has fascinated collectors for decades. A coin that, for many, is the holy grail of South African numismatics. It's small, unassuming, and yet, if you know what you're looking for, it could be the crown jewel of your collection. I'm talking about the 1964 South African half center. Now, don't be fooled by its name. Half cent might sound trivial, but in the world of coin collecting, appearances can be deceiving. This coin represents a piece of history, a tangible link to a time when South Africa was on the cusp of change, both politically and economically. For starters, let's set the scene. Imagine the 1960s, a world dramatically different from today. People were transitioning from the old ways to new ways of thinking. In South Africa, coins like the half cent weren't just currency. They were symbols of everyday life, of commerce, of culture. Every hand that touched one of these coins contributed to its journey through history. Now, the 1964 half cent is not just rare because of its age. Its rarity is compounded by a very specific feature, one that only collectors with a keen eye will notice immediately. You see, in coin collecting, condition is everything. Scratches, wear, discoloration, these can dramatically reduce value. But if a coin has survived decades with its original detail intact, it becomes something extraordinary. And the 1964 South African half center is a perfect example. Think about this. Millions of these coins were minted back then, but only a fraction have survived in a condition that collectors dream about. And even fewer have that perfect combination of patina, strike quality, and historical significance that makes a coin truly exceptional. This is what sets the 1964 half cent apart from the thousands of coins that were minted alongside it. Collectors often tell me that coins like this are not just investments, they're conversation starters. When you place one in your palm, you're holding history. You're holding a story. It's a piece of craftsmanship that survived decades, wars, and economic upheavals. And here's the thing, because of its rarity and the stories it carries, this coin is highly sought after in auctions and private sales. Now, I know what you're thinking. Sure, it sounds interesting, but what could it actually be worth? Well, this is where things get fascinating. Many collectors start with the hope of finding something worth a few $100s, maybe $1,000. But when you stumble upon a coin like this, especially one in pristine condition, the numbers can be staggering. And not just a little staggering. I'm talking about life-changing numbers. Before I reveal that, let's dive a little deeper into why collectors are willing to pay so much. One reason is scarcity. Coins, like wine, become rarer and more valuable with time if they're preserved well. Another reason is provenance. If a coin has a documented history of ownership or has been part of notable collections, its value skyrockets. And lastly, historical significance matters more than you might think. A coin minted during a pivotal moment in a country's history carries weight beyond its metal content. The 1964 South African half center checks all these boxes. It's rare, it's historically significant, and it has the kind of quality that collectors dream about. When a coin like this appears in the market, it doesn't just sell, it makes headlines. Auctions for coins like this often attract high-profile bidders who understand the true value of what they're purchasing. And the competition can drive prices higher than most people ever imagined. Here's an interesting fact. Coins are one of the few collectibles that can combine historical interest with financial potential. Unlike stocks or real estate, coins carry an emotional and aesthetic appeal. They're tangible, portable, and visually fascinating. You can hold a half cent in your hand and think about all the hands that held it before you, all the transactions it facilitated, all the stories it could tell. And that's precisely why collectors over 55 are drawn to these kinds of pieces. They represent a connection to the past that younger investors may never fully appreciate. Now, If you're someone who has ever considered starting a collection, this is exactly the type of coin you want to understand. Because it's not just about the value, it's about the story, the thrill of discovery, and yes, the possibility that one day, a single coin could become worth more than you ever dreamed. And now, after building all that anticipation, it's time to reveal the number that will make your jaw drop. A 1964 South African half-center in excellent condition has been known to fetch up to $15 million in private sales and auctions. That's right, 15 million. A small, unassuming coin from over half a century ago could potentially transform someone's life overnight. So, what does this tell us? It tells us that true value isn't always obvious. It tells us that patience, knowledge, and a keen eye for quality can turn something ordinary into something extraordinary. And most importantly, it reminds us that history, in the form of a coin, is priceless. That if you're a collector, or even just someone fascinated by rare items, this coin represents more than money, it represents possibility. And that's why coins like the 1964 South African half-center continue to captivate the hearts and wallets of collectors around the world. Remember, every coin has a story. And some stories are worth millions. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of rare coins, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a moment of discovery. Because who knows, you might just be holding the next piece of history in your hands. Before we begin, make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay with us, because today we are diving into the story of a coin so small, so easily overlooked, yet so powerful in history and value that it could change the way you look at pocket change forever. This isn't just about a half cent from 1961 South Africa. This is about uncovering the hidden treasures that most people walk past, spent without thinking, or tossed into jars for decades. But right here, right now, we are going to bring this tiny piece of copper to life in a way you've never heard before. Imagine holding a coin that once cost practically nothing to mint, a coin that could slip through your fingers like dust. A half cent. Most people didn't give it a second glance. It was too small to matter, too ordinary to admire. But for men who lived through changing governments, shifting borders, and the quiet fading of old symbols, this coin wasn't just currency. It was a marker of a time, a sign of a country transforming itself. Many of you watching right now lived during those years or grew up hearing stories from fathers and grandfathers who remembered how South Africa looked and felt in the early 1960s. And if you're between 55 and 65 or older, you know exactly how objects from that era can pull memories from places nothing else can reach. Picture that moment in 1961 when the country officially shifted from Union to Republic. New flags, new stamps, and yes, new coins. For the first time, the half-cent carried the young Republic's identity. A bold announcement struck into metal. It wasn't loud and shiny like a gold coin. It wasn't heavy like the large silver pieces collectors chase. But it had something rare: timing. It was born at a moment of change, and objects born in transition often become symbols of history rather than just pieces of money. And yet, the half-cent quietly disappeared over the years. Inflation rose. People laughed at the idea of keeping such a tiny denomination. Children used them more as toys than currency. Men carried them in their pockets without even noticing when they fell out between couch cushions or disappeared into old tins. Most were lost, melted, or simply forgotten. But what happens to an object when almost everyone forgets about it? It becomes rare. And when something becomes rare, it becomes valuable. And when it becomes valuable, it becomes powerful. Now imagine you find one. Maybe in an old drawer. Maybe in a box of keepsakes you inherited. Maybe at a flea market where the seller barely notices what he's giving away. You pick it up, and suddenly this tiny piece of copper isn't just a coin anymore. It's a doorway to a moment in time. It's a reminder of men who built families, worked hard, lived through change, and carried these little coins as part of everyday life. And that, right there, is the magic of old money. Not the shine. Not the weight. The story. Collectors today aren't just buying coins, they're buying history you can hold. They're buying rarity, survival, and the emotional pull that comes from objects linked to the past. And when a coin from 1961 has survived all these years without scratches, stains, corrosion, or wear, when it still looks almost exactly the way it looked fresh from the mint, that's when collectors start paying attention. That's when the value begins to climb. Not slowly, but sharply. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a collector's auction room. The lights bright, the hum of excitement in the air. People from around the world watching, waiting, hoping. A half-cent coin appears on screen. Tiny, simple, copper. The crowd leans in. They know something the average person doesn't. Rarity isn't measured by size. Value isn't measured by weight. It's measured by the number of survivors, the condition they're in, and the story they carry. And this particular coin, this half-cent of 1961, has all three. Now imagine the bidding. Numbers climbing higher than any ordinary person would believe possible for something so small. Collectors pushing the price, each one trying to be the last hand raised. And before anyone can catch their breath, the hammer falls. Silence. Shock. A whisper runs through the room. History has been made. That half-cent has done the impossible, because rarity, history, and perfect preservation can turn even the smallest coin into a giant. And that brings us to what you've been waiting for. After all the years this coin spent forgotten, after surviving when most didn't, after carrying the story of a country in transition, after becoming a symbol of what collectors treasure most, the highest known value placed on a flawless example of the 1961 South Africa half-center reached an unbelievable figure.
Hello everyone, before we dive into today's treasure hunt, make sure to hit subscribe and press the bell icon so you never miss one of these fascinating coin stories. Today we are uncovering the mystery behind a coin that might look humble but carries history, the one half-cent from South Africa, dated 1963. This isn't just a scrap of brass, it's a window into an era, a puzzle for collectors, and potentially something more than mere pocket change. Let's walk through what makes this coin compelling, how you can spot its details, and finally, what it's really worth today. Picture the world in the early 1960s, South Africa, just past the shift to decimal currency, introducing new coins and phasing out old ones. The 1/2 cent was part of that first decimal series, in circulation between 1961 and 1964. Wikipedia +1 in 1963, about 11,615,025 of these pieces were minted. OnlineCoin.club, that's a substantial number, but for collectors, condition, rarity, and story can elevate even common coins into something intriguing. Let's zoom in on its design. On the obverse, front side, you'll see the portrait of Jan van Riebeeck, the Dutch colonial administrator often credited as a founder figure for Cape Town. Surrounding that portrait is the bilingual motto, Unity is Strength /Indreg Mock MAG, OnlineCoin.club +1. Turn it over, and the reverse reveals two Cape sparrows perched together, an elegant motif, with the date 1963 above and 1/2 C below, flanked by decorative rosettes. N.Veronum.com +3 OnlineCoin.club +3 Manstack.com +3 The coin is made of brass, weighs approximately 5.60 g, and has a diameter close to 25.5 mm. N.Veronum.com +1 The edge is smooth. N.Veronum.com +1 What's particularly interesting is that in 1963, in addition to the standard circulating mintage, a small number of proof specimens were struck, about 4,025 units. OnlineCoin.club that gives proof versions a slight boost in rarity if preserved well. When it comes to value, though, this coin tends to fall in the modest but meaningful category. In widely known coin catalogs, the 1963 half-cent in average circulated condition fetches around $1.19. N.Veronum.com +2 OnlineCoin.club +2 Broader listings show a range from about 40 cents up to $6.26, depending on condition, uncirculated, very fine, etc. En.Veronum.com So while it's not a jackpot coin in most cases, it's far from worthless. Some online listings have circulated coins priced at around 4.90 South African rand, which is roughly a few US dollars in today's exchange rates. Bobshop.company ZA +2 Bobshop.company ZA +2 Now, why would someone pay more than face value? Because of condition, rarity, and appeal. If you have one in uncirculated condition with crisp details, no wear, original luster intact, it can command a premium. A proof specimen, properly graded and preserved, will be even more coveted among collectors. Also, sometimes coins carry small anomalies, like slight die variations, mint errors, or unusual toning, that can push value further for the right buyer. These quirks give numismatists something extra to investigate. Here's how to assess your coin. Examine wear, look at high relief areas, Van Riebeeck's hair, the sparrow's feathers. If those are worn flat, the coin is circulated and less valuable. Check for marks or scratches. Surface damage, cleaning, or scratches can hurt its collector value. Inspect the edges. True smooth edges should be unbroken, not nicked or filed. Original color and luster. If the brass still shines gently, without unnatural polishing, that's a good sign. Look for proof quality. Proof coins are often struck sharply, with mirror-like fields and frosted devices. If you ever want a definitive evaluation, consider sending it to a reputable grading service or consulting a trusted coin dealer. They'll factor in things like strike quality, appeal, authenticity, and market demand. Now, here's something to capture your imagination. Suppose you came across a rare find, a 1963 half-cent in pristine, uncirculated grade or an exceptional proof specimen. In such a case, this little coin could transcend its modest roots and become a prize collectible. The thrill of discovering a gem amid everyday coins is part of what drives Numismatics. To wrap up, this coin speaks of a time when currency was transitioning, craftsmanship was more tactile, and every detail mattered. Even with millions struck, today each surviving specimen carries a story and potential. And finally, what is this coin's value today in the market I just surveyed? In many cases, a good condition example sells for around $15 to $20, depending on region, buyer interest, shipping, and demand. That's a nice return for a coin many would dismiss as small change.